Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful Today channel. Thomas is back to LA, but he's coming with Caroline. Where is Paris? Is a comeback for Thomas Forrester in the works? Is a resurgence of Thomas Forrester imminent? Let's look more closely at Atkinson's most recent social media post, which hinted at a potential role return. Atkinson shared a video of himself playing cornhole on Instagram, showcasing the space he was using. The background of The Bold and the Beautiful gave the impression that Atkinson would be making a comeback to the CBS serial opera. Another hint that Thomas would return could have been found in Atkinson's caption. We ought to look closely at the phrase to determine whether it has two meanings. Atkinson remarked, "The second time is a charm." That may be a sign of Atkinson's upcoming big run on the show, but it was also partially caused by his successful second cornhole effort. Let's be honest, when Matthew Atkinson posted all of that, he knew he would excite fans about his potential comeback as Thomas Forrester. Many viewers are now hopeful that Thomas will return and be included in some major plots once more. Thomas was engaged to Paris Buckingham and preparing for their wedding when fans last saw him in 2024. Since then, Thomas, Paris, and Douglas Forrester have been residing abroad off-screen. Will Thomas still be engaged to Paris if he returns to B&B? Is it possible that Thomas will return with the intention of resuming his romance with Hope Logan, possibly in time for her breakup with Carter Walton? Let's hope Thomas returns to Los Angeles soon, since there are a lot of ways his return may change things. When Thomas is around, he always manages to liven things up and is missed. What are your thoughts on Matthew Atkinson possibly resuming Thomas Forrester's role? What kinds of partnerships and tales do you hope Thomas will feature in the future? Taking over the role of Thomas Forrester. Early September will see the return of Ridge Forrester and Taylor Hayes' son to Los Angeles. After Hope Logan turned down Thomas's marriage proposal, Atkinson left the CBS serial opera in March 2024 and traveled to Paris. He took his kid, Douglas Forrester, with him when he stopped their romance. The two left the canvas together, heading back to France in July 2024 after Thomas returned later that year in June to announce his engagement to Paris Buckingham. There were hints. This past Monday, August 11th, Atkinson teased a return to the B&B on Instagram by sharing a video of himself playing cornhole outside of Sunset Las Palmas Studios, which appeared to be the soap opera's new filming site. "Second time's a charm" was the caption for the actor's photo. Having said that, a lot has happened in Los Angeles since he left, so it will be interesting to watch how Thomas contributes. Since Ridge has come to terms with his emotions for Brooke Logan and his soon-to-be mother-in-law, Grace Buckingham, was exposed for fabricating Liam Spencer's brain tumor, it appears like his parents' reunion is coming to an end. Additionally, Hope recently became engaged to Carter Walton, so there will be a lot of drama when Thomas returns. There is currently no information available on Diamond White's plans to reprise her role as Paris Buckingham.
Thomas Forrester, with such captivating intensity, shared an ostensibly casual Instagram video, a seemingly innocuous clip of Atkinson engaging in a game of cornhole, bathed in Californian sunshine. Yet, for the legion of dedicated, The Bold and the Beautiful viewers attuned to the subtlest narrative vibrations emanating from the CBS institution, this video was less a leisurely pastime and far more a meticulously placed breadcrumb, potentially leading back to the heart of the Forrester family drama. The significance lay not merely in Atkinson's focused tosses but in the deliberately framed backdrop. Clearly visible behind the actor was the unmistakable facade of the show's iconic filming location, the CBS television city complex in Los Angeles, home to the fictional Forrester creations and the epicenter of decades of romantic entanglements, corporate machinations, and familial betrayals. This wasn't just any location, this was the stage upon which Thomas Forrester's turbulent saga unfolded. The mere presence of this building, looming large over a casual game, instantly transcended the video's surface simplicity, morphing it into a potent visual clue, a deliberate, almost audacious, hint that Atkinson wasn't merely reminiscing but might very well be physically re-entering the world he once dominated. This geographical marker ignited the first spark of fervent hope. Was Atkinson, and by extension Thomas Forrester, poised for a dramatic re-entry onto the canvas? However, the visual tease was merely the opening act in Atkinson's masterful play of fan engagement. The accompanying caption, "Second time's a charm," added intricate layers of potential meaning, transforming a simple observation about his successful second cornhole bag landing into a resonant phrase loaded with narrative possibility within the context of the bold and the beautiful. On its most literal level, it celebrated a minor victory in the game, a moment of light-hearted triumph. Yet, for an audience steeped in the serialized storytelling of soaps, where dialogue often crackles with double entendre and characters' fates pivot on cryptic pronouncements, Second Time's a Charm resonated with profound thematic echoes related to Thomas Forrester's own tumultuous journey. Thomas's history is fundamentally defined by second chances, or, more accurately, his desperate, often misguided, grasps at them. His pursuit of Hope Logan has been a relentless cycle of obsession, manipulation, genuine remorse, painful rejection, fleeting redemption, and subsequent relapse. His engagement to Paris Buckingham, while presented as a fresh start and a move towards stability for himself and his son Douglas, was itself born from the ashes of his shattered dreams concerning hope. The phrase "second time's a charm" could thus be interpreted as a meta-commentary on Atkinson's own return to the role for another major storyline arc, a chance to revisit and potentially resolve Thomas's core conflicts with greater wisdom or finality. It tantalizingly suggests that this potential comeback represents a second significant run for Atkinson in the role, perhaps promising a narrative where Thomas finally achieves the elusive charm, lasting happiness, genuine redemption, or a love that isn't rooted in fixation. Crucially, it could also foreshadow Thomas's own perspective should he return, a man believing that this time, perhaps with hope newly vulnerable after her impending split from Carter Walton, his second, or third, or fourth, attempt at winning her heart might finally succeed. Atkinson, a savvy performer deeply aware of his character's legacy and the passionate fanbase dissecting his every online move, undoubtedly understood the wildfire of speculation this caption would ignite. The calculated placement of the CBS studio, combined with the deliberately ambiguous phrasing, wasn't accidental social media fodder, it was a knowing wink, a carefully orchestrated provocation designed to send the fandom into a frenzy of anticipation, a testament to his understanding of the symbiotic relationship between actor, character, and audience in the digital age. The potential implications of Thomas Forrester's return are nothing short of seismic for the carefully balanced, yet perpetually simmering, dynamics of the bold and the beautiful. His departure in 2024, while framed as a hopeful new beginning, engaged to the kind and grounded Paris Buckingham, planning their future, and taking Douglas away from the toxic cycles of Los Angeles to build a stable life overseas, never felt like a definitive endpoint. Thomas, with his potent blend of magnetic charm, deep-seated vulnerability, artistic brilliance, and a frightening capacity for manipulation when fixated, primarily on hope, is a character whose absence creates a distinct void. He is a perpetual catalyst, an agent of chaos capable of upending relationships, exposing hidden truths, and forcing characters to confront uncomfortable realities about themselves. His potential reappearance on the Los Angeles scene throws numerous established narratives into thrilling disarray. The foremost question burns: what becomes of Paris? Does Thomas return still committed to their engagement, bringing Paris and Douglas back into the Forrester fold, thereby introducing a new, potentially stabilizing, yet still complex, family unit? Paris, integrated into the main cast, could forge her own alliances and conflicts, perhaps finding unexpected kinship or friction with characters like Steffi or even Brooke. Conversely, does Thomas return alone, his engagement shattered off-screen? This scenario immediately paints him as either a heartbroken figure seeking solace or, more ominously, a man freed from obligation and instantly reverting his laser focus back onto Hope Logan, viewing her impending separation from Carter Walton not as a time for healing but as the long-awaited opening he's been waiting for. The Hope Logan factor is the most volatile element. Hope's relationship with Carter, while mature and stable, arguably lacks the white-hot, obsessive, and narratively explosive passion of her tortured history with Thomas. Thomas's return, especially if he arrives single and determined, would instantly test the foundation of Hope's current relationship and force her to confront the unresolved, incredibly potent, and deeply traumatic connection they share. Could she resist the pull of the man who has been both her tormentor and, in fleeting moments, seemingly her soulmate? Would Carter stand a chance against the gravitational force of the Thomas-Hope dynamic, a storyline engine that has driven years of plot? Furthermore, Thomas's presence inevitably reignites the Forrester-Logan feud, pulling Brooke back into high alert and defensive mode concerning her daughter, while potentially creating fascinating new tensions or alliances with Ridge, Steffi, who has a complex, protective relationship with her brother despite his flaws, and even Liam Spencer, whose own history with Thomas is a tangled web of betrayal, competition, and shared connection to Hope. Douglas's return would also reintroduce the poignant father-son dynamic and impact Hope, who has a deep maternal bond with the boy. The storytelling possibilities are vast and electrifying. Will Thomas truly be changed? Has his time away granted him hard-won perspective and genuine emotional maturity, allowing him to pursue Hope, or anyone, in a healthy, respectful manner? Or will the familiar patterns of obsession and manipulation resurface, perhaps triggered by seeing Hope vulnerable? Could he become embroiled in new rivalries at Forrester Creations, reigniting his competitive spirit with RJ or others? Might his return expose secrets or reignite old scandals? The sheer narrative energy Thomas injects, his ability to stir the pot, as the fandom aptly notes, is undeniable. His comeback isn't just about one character returning, it's about dropping a lit match into a carefully arranged tinderbox of existing relationships, promising the kind of high-stakes emotional drama, romantic upheaval, and familial conflict that defines the very essence of the soap opera genre. Therefore, Matthew Atkinson's Instagram post, a seemingly simple moment of leisure captured and shared, transcends its humble content to become a masterclass in fan engagement and narrative teasing. The deliberate inclusion of the CBS studio backdrop acts as an undeniable geographical marker, placing Atkinson firmly back within the orbit of the bold and the beautiful. The caption's second time's a charm, while functional on one level, resonates powerfully with the cyclical nature of Thomas Forrester's struggles and the actor's potential return to a defining role. Atkinson's clear awareness of the speculation he would ignite demonstrates a profound connection to the character's legacy and the audience's investment. The potential ramifications of Thomas's return ripple outwards with immense force, threatening the stability of his engagement to Paris, posing an existential threat to Hope's current relationship with Carter, reigniting the fiery Hope-Thomas-Liam triangle in a new configuration, destabilizing familial alliances, particularly the Logan-Forrester divide, and reintroducing the compelling dynamic between Thomas and his son Douglas. Whether Thomas returns seeking genuine redemption, consumed by renewed obsession, or simply aiming for a peaceful life, though peace is rarely lasting in soap operas, his presence guarantees seismic shifts in the narrative landscape. He is a character uniquely wired to expose fault lines, amplify desires, and generate conflict, essential fuel for the ongoing drama. The hope resonating through the fandom is palpable, a testament to the character's complexity and Atkinson's compelling portrayal. Thomas Forrester's potential comeback isn't just a casting update, it's the promise of high-octane storytelling, emotional turmoil, romantic chaos, and the thrilling unpredictability that keeps viewers riveted to the bold and the beautiful. The stage, quite literally glimpsed in that Instagram video, is set. The only question remaining is not if his return will cause a stir, but how deep the tremors will run and which relationships will be left standing in the aftermath of Thomas Forrester once again walking the halls of Forrester Creations. The anticipation is, quite simply, part of the charm. Thomas Forrester, the complex, often tormented scion of the Forrester and Hayes dynasties, is poised for a dramatic re-entry onto the tumultuous stage of the bold and the beautiful sometime in early September. Actor Matthew Atkinson, the compelling force behind Thomas's turbulent journey, ignited the speculation furnace with an Instagram post on Monday, August 11th, that was less a whisper and more a clarion call to soap opera aficionados. Filmed outside the unmistakable facade of the show's new production home, Sunset Las Palmas Studios, Atkinson was seen casually engaged in a game of cornhole, an image radiating Californian nonchalance that belied the seismic implications of his location. The caption, dripping with enigmatic promise, "Second time's a charm," served as the definitive confirmation fans craved, signaling that Thomas's self-imposed exile in the romantic refuge of Paris was ending, and the intricate, often destructive, web of relationships he left behind in Los Angeles was about to be violently disturbed once more. His previous departure in March 2024 was a scene etched in heartbreak and defiance, reeling from the shattering rejection of his marriage proposal by Hope Logan, the woman whose orbit had defined his existence for years. Oscillating between obsessive fixation and genuine, albeit flawed, devotion, Thomas made the agonizing decision to sever their tumultuous romance entirely. Gathering his young son, Douglas Forrester, the innocent pawn caught in the crossfire of adult passions and manipulations, he turned his back on the city, his family, and the specter of hope, seeking refuge across the Atlantic, hoping the distance might cauterize the wound. Paris offered a temporary balm, a backdrop for reinvention, and indeed, Thomas re-emerged briefly on the Los Angeles scene in June 2024, not as a broken man, but as one seemingly reborn and betrothed, introducing the dazzling Paris Buckingham as his fiancée. Their whirlwind return was a statement. Thomas had moved on, secured a new future, a new love. They departed together for France in July 2024, presenting a united front, leaving behind a Los Angeles momentarily stunned by the speed of his emotional recovery and the glamorous new chapter he seemed to have authored. Yet, Atkinson's recent Instagram tease suggests that chapter, or at least its Parisian setting, was merely an interlude. Second time's a charm implies not just a return, but a return with intent, perhaps a determination to succeed where he previously failed, or to navigate the treacherous waters of Forrester Creations and Logan family drama with a newfound perspective, though Thomas's history suggests perspective is often clouded by deep-seated emotional currents. However, the Los Angeles Thomas abandoned in a haze of rejection is not the Los Angeles that awaits him in September. The city, and more specifically the interconnected worlds of the Forresters, Logans, and Spencers, has undergone tectonic shifts in his absence, rendering the landscape almost unrecognizable from the one he fled. The most foundational tremor involves his own parents. Ridge Forrester and Taylor Hayes, whose long-awaited and hard-fought reunion symbolized a beacon of stability and enduring love amidst the chaos, now find their marital edifice crumbling with alarming speed. Ridge, the patriarch perpetually torn between the magnetic pull of Brooke Logan and the deep, soulful connection with Taylor, is experiencing another profound epiphany, one that inconveniently, yet predictably for those familiar with his decades-long pattern, revolves around Brooke. The embers of his feelings for his destiny have reignited, casting a long, destabilizing shadow over his marriage to Taylor. This resurgent longing threatens not just his current relationship but the fragile peace of the entire family, reopening ancient wounds and rekindling the bitter rivalry that has defined generations. Thomas's return, likely seeking familial grounding, will instead plunge him directly into the volatile epicenter of his parents' disintegrating union, forcing him to choose sides in a battle he thought was long settled, potentially fracturing his bond with one parent or the other. Adding another layer of incendiary complication is the scandal surrounding his almost mother-in-law, Grace Buckingham. Grace's shocking deception, the fabrication of Liam Spencer's life-threatening brain tumor, stands as one of the most audacious and cruel manipulations in recent soap history. Her exposure as the architect of this elaborate, emotionally devastating hoax has not only destroyed her own credibility and relationships but has irrevocably tainted the Buckingham name. This scandal casts a long, dark shadow over Thomas's engagement to Paris. While Paris herself was seemingly unaware of her mother's monstrous scheme, the association is toxic. Thomas's decision to align himself with the Buckinghams, especially in light of Grace's actions targeting Liam, a man intrinsically linked to hope in Thomas's own turbulent past, now appears fraught with peril and poor judgment. His return with Paris, if Diamond White reprises the role, would force her into a viper's nest of resentment and suspicion, particularly from Liam, Steffi, and the Logans. If Paris does not return with him, the question of why, did Grace's actions fracture their relationship? Did Thomas come back alone for a reason? Becomes another tantalizing mystery. Grace's disgrace is not a distant rumor, it's a festering wound in the heart of the community Thomas is re-entering, guaranteeing immediate hostility and judgment. Yet, above the crumbling foundation of his parents' marriage and the toxic fallout of Grace Buckingham's treachery, one revelation looms largest, destined to strike Thomas with the force of a physical blow. Hope Logan, the woman whose rejection sent him fleeing across an ocean, is engaged. And not to Liam Spencer, the perennial obstacle to Thomas's happiness, but to Carter Walton, the steadfast, honorable COO of Forrester Creations. Carter represents everything Thomas, in his darker moments, has not been: stable, reliable, morally centered, and crucially, unburdened by a history of obsession and manipulation directed at Hope. Hope's acceptance of Carter's proposal signifies a profound shift within her. It speaks to a desire for peace, for a love built on trust and mutual respect, a stark contrast to the roller coaster of passion, betrayal, and psychological turmoil that defined her relationships with both Liam and Thomas. For Thomas, this news is a grenade. His departure was predicated on the finality of Hope's rejection, his engagement to Paris arguably a defensive maneuver, a shield against the pain. Learning that Hope has not only moved on but has chosen a man like Carter, a colleague Thomas must interact with professionally, and someone Hope clearly trusts implicitly, will be excruciating. It fundamentally undermines the narrative he might have constructed in Paris, that Hope was lost to chaos with Liam, or perhaps would eventually realize her mistake. Instead, she has found apparent serenity and commitment elsewhere. This knowledge has the power to shatter his carefully rebuilt composure, potentially resurrecting old obsessions or fueling a dangerous new determination. Will he see Carter as a genuine rival? Will he perceive Hope's engagement as a betrayal of their complicated, unresolved history? Or will it force him to confront the harsh reality that Hope has truly closed the door on any future with him, a closure he never fully accepted? The potential for explosive confrontation, bitter jealousy, and psychological unraveling is immense. Thomas's reaction to Hope's engagement to Carter is the single most anticipated moment of his return, holding the key to whether he arrives as a changed man or the same volatile force capable of reigniting old fires. Therefore, Thomas Forrester's return to Los Angeles in early September is not merely a homecoming, it is the careful placement of a lit match into a tinderbox meticulously prepared in his absence. He steps back onto a stage transformed by seismic betrayals, Grace's tumor lie, crumbling foundations, Ridge and Taylor's marriage, and profound personal shifts, Hope's engagement to Carter. The second time Matthew Atkinson alludes to carries immense weight. Is it a second chance at love? A second chance at familial connection? A second chance to prove he's truly evolved beyond the shadows of his past manipulations? Or is it simply the second act in a personal tragedy destined to repeat its patterns? The Instagram tease outside Sunset Las Palmas Studios wasn't just an actor reporting to work, it was the first tremor announcing an impending emotional earthquake. Thomas brings with him the unresolved specter of his obsession with Hope, the complexities of his new engagement to Paris, should she return, the paternal responsibility towards Douglas, and the inevitable entanglement in his parents' disintegrating marriage. He returns to a Hope who has seemingly found peace away from him and Liam, to a Carter who represents a threat not through rivalry for Hope's affection in the old way, but through embodying the stability she now craves, and to a city still reeling from Grace Buckingham's horrific deception. Every relationship is a potential fault line, his dynamic with Ridge, fraught with paternal expectations and disappointments, with Taylor, needing her support while she faces her own marital collapse, with Steffi, his fiercely protective sister, with Liam, the eternal adversary now freshly victimized by his almost mother-in-law, with Brooke, the matriarch whose daughter he pursued relentlessly and who now stands again as the wedge between his parents, and most crucially, with Hope, the woman whose rejection defined his exit and whose new engagement defines the landscape of his return. The charm Atkinson hopes for seems a distant prospect against this backdrop. Instead, Thomas Forrester's reprisal promises a maelstrom of high-stakes drama, agonizing confrontations, psychological complexity, and the inevitable unraveling of carefully laid plans. Los Angeles awaits, not with open arms, but with bated breath, as the prodigal son returns, not to peace, but to a perfect storm of his own making and the relentless currents of a soap opera destiny that refuses to let him go quietly. The charm lies not in ease, but in the guaranteed, captivating chaos his presence unleashes.